Most people think investing is about choosing growth or income, early or later, as if those are two completely separate decisions. Early on, you're told to focus on growth. Later, you're told to switch to income. And that advice sounds reasonable because it's simple. But real portfolios don't work like switches. They don't suddenly stop doing one thing and start doing another. They behave more like systems, where changes happen gradually, and where decisions overlap over time. And once you understand that, the relationship between growth and income starts to look very different. That idea of switching didn't come out of nowhere. Most people hear the same advice early on. Focus on growth while you're working. Let everything compound. Don't worry about income yet. And later, often much later, you're told to change gears. Start thinking about income. Start taking money out. On the surface, that makes sense. When you're younger, you usually don't need cash from your investments. When you're older, you often do. So the advice sounds logical, almost obvious. But what this way of thinking leaves out is how portfolios actually behave in between. Because real life doesn't move in clean phases. Needs change gradually. Goals overlap. And portfolios tend to do the same. The problem with that switch idea isn't that it's wrong. It's that it's incomplete. Portfolios don't suddenly stop growing the moment you start taking money out. And income doesn't suddenly appear only after growth is finished. In reality, there's usually a long transition in between. Growth is still happening, while small amounts of income begin to show up. Not because something fundamentally changed, but because the portfolio reached a different size. This overlap is where most of the confusion comes from. People expect a clean before and after. But investing rarely works that way. It's more gradual, more flexible. And once you start thinking in terms of transitions instead of switches, the mechanics behind growth and income become much easier to understand. Here's the part that's easy to miss. When portfolios grow, two different things change at the same time. The level changes, how large the portfolio is. And the speed changes, how much it can grow in a normal year. Early on, both are small. So any withdrawal feels heavy. It slows everything down. But as the portfolio grows, the level increases, and with it, the natural growth becomes larger too. At that point, withdrawals don't hit the same way. Not because taking money out is suddenly safe, but because the portfolio has built a buffer. More capital stays invested. More return continues to compound. And that's the key shift. Growth doesn't stop just because income starts. What matters is whether enough remains for the system to keep working. This is why size matters so much more than labels like growth or income. The mechanics don't change. The scale does. What you're seeing here isn't about different markets. It's about different choices made over time. When capital is allowed to stay invested early on, growth compounds first. The portfolio has time to build strength before anything is taken out. That early phase matters more than it seems. Because during this period, returns don't just add value. They increase the base that future returns grow from. When withdrawals begin later, they're coming from a portfolio that already has momentum. Even as money is taken out, enough capital remains invested to keep growth going. When withdrawals start earlier, the effect is different. Capital leaves before that momentum is fully built. And when capital leaves early, it doesn't just reduce the balance in that moment. It reduces how much future growth can build on. The market return can be the same. What changes is how much of that return is still there to compound over time. Both approaches can work, but they don't create the same long-term capacity, because compounding isn't just about growth. It's about building enough strength early, so withdrawals don't slow everything down later. Of course, Real life doesn't follow clean models. Sometimes money needs to come out, not because a strategy failed, but because life happened. A car repair, a new roof, unexpected expenses. Taking money out in those moments isn't a mistake. It's often just a practical decision. What matters isn't avoiding withdrawals altogether. It's understanding how timing changes what the portfolio can support. This isn't personal investment or tax advice. It's simply an illustration of how compounding and withdrawals interact over time, and why context matters as much as mechanics. Because growth and income aren't opposites. They're different phases of the same long-term system. And once you see it as one system over time, the difference between growth and income becomes much easier to navigate. If this helped clarify the difference, please leave a like to let me know. And subscribing makes sure you don't miss the next part.